Hello, YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. As always, if you like the content here, like, subscribe, leave a comment. I do try to answer all the comments that you guys leave. Today, we're going to be making a crab bisque soup. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background on this recipe, what inspired it, where it came from, and how it came to be. If you spend any time in the Philadelphia area, the greater Philadelphia area, or even New Jersey, between 1970 and about 1999, you might remember a seafood restaurant that was called Seafood Shanty. It was a lot like Red Lobster, except in my opinion, I think the food was fresher and better. If you haven't guessed already, it was started by a guy named Joe Gentile. I think I'm pronouncing his name properly. If not, please let me know. He essentially started the Seafood Shanty, and he grew it into a chain. But his chain was more or less confined to Philadelphia and the greater Philadelphia areas. From what I've read, Joe did a pretty good business through the 70s and the 80s until the 90s when he ran into some financial problems. And as far as I know, and I could be wrong, correct me in the comments if I am, in the late 90s, pretty much all of the seafood shanties had closed. So the one near me closed in, I believe, 1999. So fast forward to 2012, someone bought the rights to the Seafood Shanty name and logo, and they reopened a new Seafood Shanty in Reading, Pennsylvania. It was good. It wasn't a bad place to eat, although if you ask me, in my opinion, it just wasn't the same as the old Seafood Shanties. It just didn't have the same ambiance. So don't get me wrong, the food was good, it just wasn't the same. So it was only in business for a couple years until it closed up, and now it has been replaced by a coastal grill. For the other half of this story, we're going to have to rewind back to, I think, 1980. That's a picture of my dad and me sitting on our couch in the house in Philly that we lived in. So, nice 70s couch, don't you think? I'm not quite sure if this is 1980 or not. I'm just guessing. All I can really tell you about this picture is that it was taken around Halloween. For obvious reasons, you can see why. Living in Philadelphia, my parents never had a ton of money. We had what we needed. We had the essentials. We had food. We had clothes. We had a house and roofs over our heads. But if you live in Philadelphia, you know as well as I do that that city will suck you dry as far as taxes, as far as insurance rates, and pretty much everything else. If you keep up with current events, because this only happened about a week ago, there was a medical jet that left the Northeast Philadelphia airport, and about 5 minutes after takeoff, it crashed at the Roosevelt Mall. Well, to give you perspective on where we used to live, I used to be able to walk to the Roosevelt Mall. But because of the high cost of living in Philadelphia, we ended up in 1990 moving to Reading, Pennsylvania. So now that we were in Reading, my parents were doing a little bit better. They were paying less money in car insurance, less money in homeowners insurance, less money in taxes, pretty much less money in everything. When you leave Philadelphia, that's what happens. But we moved into the house, and about 5 minutes down the road, there was a seafood shanty. We ate there probably, I would say, once every maybe 3 months or so, give or take. But we went there fairly frequently. It was good. My dad really liked their Crab Bisque. Every time we went there, he would always get a bowl of the Crab Bisque as an appetizer. And by the way, in 48 years, I have never seen the man in person without a beard. In 1999, the Seafood Shanty closed up, and Dad could no longer get his Crab Bisque soup anymore. It was around this time that he started experimenting to make his own Crab Bisque, to kind of pattern it after Seafood Shanties. It's pretty close, if you ask me. I don't remember Seafood Shanty's Crab Bisque all that well, but up until now, my mom had done most, if not all, of the cooking, and Dad was starting to get into it. In his later years, he started to get more and more into cooking. So I can remember eating some bad batches of the soup. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it just wasn't how he wanted it. And he kept working on the recipe, and he kept working on trying to perfect it until he finally got it to where he liked it. After a bunch of tries, he finally got it to the point where he liked it, and we were all giving him rave reviews over it. to the point where now he would make it on special occasions, he would make it on Sundays, and he would invite everybody over to come have some of his crab bisque. Over the years, he really got into cooking after that. He made spaghetti and meatballs, steaks on the grill. He made a bunch of different dishes. But this is the only one that I believe is his scratch recipe that he developed and made himself. Eventually, Dad retired, but he kept on cooking because I think he liked to do it. And on Sundays, especially, he would invite everybody over to come eat dinner. Whatever he felt like making that day, whether it be steaks, spaghetti and homemade meatballs, or his crab bisque. And when he made the crab bisque, we all came running. I think I'm the only one who ever asked him for the recipe, and I'm probably the only one that has it. So now I'm going to share it with you. Sadly, on February 3rd, Dad passed away. He will be missed and remembered by everyone who knew and loved him. Now, to honor my dad, we're going to make his family favorite, Crab Bisque. Stay tuned, here it comes. All right, let's get started. Ingredients-wise, we have half of a Vidalia onion that we're going to chop. We have 2 jalapeno peppers. We have 3 stalks of celery. So what we're going to do is we're going to chop up all of these veggies and we're going to saute them in a pan. So we have 3 cans of Campbell's tomato bisque. We're going to make that as per the can instructions. We have 3 pints of heavy whipping cream. Now, actually, the original recipe calls for 3 half pints. So I overdid it a little bit on the cream here, my mistake. But it'll just make it a little bit more of a creamier soup. We have 1 pound of claw crab meat. We have 1 pound of jumbo lump crab meat. And we have 1 pound of snow crab clusters. So Dad always used 3 pounds of snow crab clusters, but I'm being lazy because I don't want to have to shell all of those crabs. All right, so let's get our veggies chopped and get them over to the pan and start sauteing. Now, when you're chopping these veggies up, what I do is I make the pieces, I'd say medium size onions. Nothing too big and nothing too small because you want to have the vegetables in the soup. You could use whatever you want. I mean, you could add vegetables, carrots, whatever you'd like. But this is pretty much staying to the original recipe. Now, when I chop the jalapenos, I remove the seeds and the spines from them. We have our pan here with olive oil over medium to high heat, and we're going to saute our vegetables. What we're looking to do is just make them soft. So while these veggies are in the pan, I keep them moving so that nothing sits on the bottom too long. You're not necessarily looking to brown them, but if they do get a little bit brown, it's not a big deal. But what you're looking to do is just soften them up and get the onions translucent, and then you can add them into your soup. These vegetables have been going now for a little over 5 minutes. We're going to let them go for a couple more minutes. I have turned the heat down a little bit. So in the meantime, we're going to take our Campbell's soup. We're going to put it into the pot, and we're going to follow the can instructions. So 3 cans of soup, 3 cans of water, stir everything together, and you see the veggies are starting to get a little bit brown. They're ready. So we're going to add them to the soup and give it a stir. I have this going over a low heat, and we're going to stir it in real well, make sure everything's incorporated, and then we're going to move on to adding our cream. The soup and the veggies are starting to get warm. We're going to add in 3 pints of heavy whipping cream. The original recipe, like I said earlier, calls for 3 half pints. This will just make the soup a little bit more creamy. And I didn't realize that it was 3 half pints until after I had added it. Now you want to give that a good stir. Get everything mixed together well. Leave it on low heat and let it simmer away while you prepare your crab meat. Now I come back to this and I stir it maybe every 15 minutes or so just to keep it moving and keep everything stirred and mixed together. Here we have our 1 pound of snow crab legs that need to be shelled and the meat taken out of. Our soup is starting to thicken up a little bit. We'll give it another stir here. Here we have our jumbo lump crab meat, and we have our claw crab meat in the can. And this is the difference. That's the snow crab leg meat. And like I said, Dad always used to use 3 pounds of snow crabs when he made this. And that is the canned crab meat. It's not really going to affect the flavor of the soup, although the crab leg cluster meat does look a lot better. Now that our crab meat is ready to go, we're going to give this another quick stir, and we're going to add the meat to it. Now that the meat's been added, we're going to stir it in, and we're going to leave this simmer for about an hour, and we're going to come back to it maybe every 15-20 minutes or so and keep stirring it. This is on low heat. At this point, our crab bisque is pretty much finished. We just need to let it simmer for about an hour, and in an hour we'll come back and see how it looks and try some. It's been about an hour. The soup's looking pretty good. If you let it simmer a little bit longer, it'll actually get a little bit thicker, but it's ready to eat. So let's give it a try. Look at all that crab. Now I like to add a little bit of Old Bay to mine. I don't add Old Bay to the recipe, I just put it in the bowl. And let's give it a shot. Cheers. That is good. Just like I remember it. So, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions or anything, leave them in the comments section. Like I said earlier, I try to answer all the questions and comments and everything that people leave. Until next time, see you later.